After becoming the Empress, I like to marry my courtiers the most. The only son of the Prime Minister, 8 feet tall, his appearance and talent are of the highest quality. If you are so good, then point it to my wet nurse. The young general of the Ho mansion has a hearty personality, and is unparalleled in the world with a good gun. It's a pity not to marry a good woman. Coincidentally, I also have a wet nurse. Aren't you all unwilling to enter the palace to be my emperor's husband? Then I will be more generous. Marriage was granted. Marriage was granted. 1. Before my father died, I was the only daughter under my knees. He did not choose a man from the clan to succeed to the throne, but put me on the throne with an edict. As soon as the mourning was over, I put on the bright yellow dragon robe, and went to the hall. He became the most powerful 95 supreme in the world. But on the first day of the court, I didn't taste the taste of power at all. Nearly 100 civil and military officials in the Manchu dynasty bowed their heads to me. In the hundreds of years since our dynasty, there is no precedent for an empress. So the courtiers will inevitably be uncomfortable, and I can understand it very well. I waved my bare hand to avoid kneeling. But these ministers did not accept my kindness. The princess is dressed in a dragon robe, do you really want to ignore the legislation? For my grand prosperity, I hope the princess will take off her dragon robe and return to the orthodox. I agree. Listening to the string of second ions below, I was not angry. After all, I really didn't have any orthodoxy before, and I can understand if these people don't believe me. The Prime Minister's only son, Shen Zhaoheng, walked out of the crowd, and he bowed to me. He said sonorously and powerfully, "The Crown Prince of the Imperial Palace, Feng Zhihui, is of good character, benevolence and virtue, and I recommend His Highness the Crown Prince to be orthodox." After saying that, he raised his eyes and looked directly at me. In those eyes, there was no trace of respect for me. Shen Zhaoheng and I have known each other since childhood. Everyone in the capital knows that I like him. Before I ascended the throne, I repeatedly begged my father to point him to me as a son-in-law. But Shen Zhaoheng refused every time. He was gentle and kind to everyone, but he spoke coldly to me. At first I didn't know why. Later I found out that he had long liked my cousin, Feng Yain, the princess of the imperial mansion. In order to win Feng Yain's smile, he said that he would rather marry a peasant girl than marry a princess. This sentence has also been passed down to the people. The whole of Kyoto knew that I, a princess, was worthless in his eyes. The people speculated that I must be extremely ugly, which made Shen Zhaoheng, a gentle young man, so disgusted. Thinking of this, the smile on the corners of my lips became a little colder. Want Feng Yain's brother to be the emperor? Then I have to ask the army in my hand if it agrees. 2. I stood up and pointed lightly at the 2 ministers who spoke first. Killed. My father repeatedly told me before he died. He must be benevolent, forgiving, love the people as he would his own son, heed advice, and respect civil officials. I always keep the teachings in mind. So I endured it when they didn't kneel to me. I endured it when I abdicated. But now that I have even chosen who to be the emperor, I really can't bear it. Princess, no. Lord Qi and Lord Wang are censors, and there is no precedent for killing censors in our dynasty. Our dynasty governs the world with benevolence and goodness. How can you kill innocents so indiscriminately? The 2 people I pointed to were so frightened that they instantly collapsed on the ground. The 2 people who had just clamored for me to abdicate have now begun to kowtow to beg for mercy. I waved my hand impatiently, kill. The Jinui moved very neatly and carried them out of the hall. Crying and begging for mercy sounded all the way. Before everyone in the hall came to their senses, they heard 2 screams and a silence like death. No one in the Manchu dynasty dared to speak again. After a long time, Shen Zhaoheng seemed to have finally come back to his senses and pointed at me incredulously. Feng Yi, you're crazy. Snap. As soon as he finished speaking, he was slapped hard in the face. Bastard, how dare you call your majesty by name? I have no way to teach my son, and I hope your majesty will punish me. In the end, it is the prime minister, not comparable to these stupid ministers. One emperor and one courtier, and he used the same set of things to my father to me. A good end is a dead end. The bad ones are just the 9 clans having fun. I smiled and looked at the prime minister. Shin Xiang is joking, how can I be willing to punish Shin Shilong? Shin Gugong below breathed a sigh of relief, and I changed my voice. I have just ascended the throne, and I am still short of an imperial husband, what do you think? Shingu paused and then bowed heavily. Your Majesty's family affairs, I dare not speak nonsense. I raised my eyebrows and looked at the others, where are the beloved lords? We dare not speak falsely. 3. Don't dare to talk nonsense. I just like them to shut up. I see that Shin Shilong is good, but I don't know if I am willing. Shin Zhaoheng's face instantly turned blue, and he said angrily to me, don't go too far. I smiled, it seems that I don't want to, but it doesn't matter, I never force others to make it difficult. Shin Shilong has also reached the marriageable age, so I will give you a marriage. I summoned the eunuch Xiaodetsi to step forward. I remember that Shin Shilong said that he would rather marry a peasant girl than a princess. I don't care about the lintel, it just so happens that my wet nurse wants to leave the palace recently, and I am worried about finding a good family for her. Xiaodetsi immediately agreed. Your Majesty is wise. This is not only Shin Zhaoheng, but Shin Gu's face is also very blue. The only son of the Prime Minister, he has read poetry and books since he was a child, and his talents and appearances are of high quality, and his future is magnanimous. Now I want to marry a wet nurse. Although she was the emperor's wet nurse, she was also a wet nurse. Shingu panicked, Your Majesty, the child is young, not yet. Before he could finish speaking, I raised my hand to interrupt. I have a deep relationship with my wet nurse, Shin Xiang. I will definitely treat her well if I marry into your Shin family in the future. The emperor's golden mouth naturally has no room for recovery. Shingu knelt on the ground, his voice gritted his teeth. Thank you, Your Majesty, for your marriage. As for Shin Zhaoheng, he was completely dumbfounded at this time. I gathered my robe. The bright yellow fruit is really dazzling. Such a dazzling and gorgeous color should have been worn on me a long time ago. It looks good, and it suits me very well. 4. From His Highness Mingda's court, I went to the morning hall. I value filial piety, no matter how face, I still have to do enough. My father died very decently. The old man in his 70s is still in the wind. But this kind of death is not an exception in the heavenly family. Your Majesty has arrived. Xiaodetsi's sharp voice opened the way for me. Hearing that I was coming, the already quiet morning hall rang out crying again. Our dynasty stipulated that all concubines who had no children should be buried. The father's heirs were sparse, and the burial list was written on more than 10 sheets of paper. In order to avoid the old man's retribution below, I tore up the list of martyrs. All the concubines bowed to me, and in their eyes, I was no different from my reborn parents. I waved my hand and asked them to go down first. I took the incense candle from Xiaodetsi's hand, and I inserted it into the incense burner at will. After bowing 3 times to the old man's spirit seat, I looked at the Queen Mother kneeling in the front. I joked, Mother, why are you acting in this play when everyone is dead? Hearing my words, the Queen Mother finally opened her eyes. Bastard. Looking at her hateful eyes, I suddenly smiled. If anyone wants me to be emperor the most, my biological mother must be the first. My father called me to the bedside before he breathed. To be honest, it is indeed difficult to guess the emperor's mind. I was ready to rebel, but the throne fell on my head. I am very happy about this. But unfortunately, I am happy, and some people are destined to be unhappy. The first to bear the brunt is my mother. Her face changed suddenly, and before her father could breathe, she sent a message to the royal king. For my uncle, I have never known what charm he has. It can make my mother so haunted. He didn't even do such a good thing as his own daughter being the emperor. But pigeons are not as fast as arrows. The dozen or so pigeons released were all thrown in front of the Queen Mother by me. I took the unpassed letterhead and shook it in front of her. Immediately send troops and usurp the throne. Queen Mother, do you usurp my position? That was the first time she saw my daughter clearly. I, the daughter she has never given care and love, is fending for herself in the deep palace. I have become an emperor, so naturally there is no need to continue acting. Overnight, half of the people in my mother's harem were missing. All of her and the royal king's carefully cultivated henchmen were killed by me. The Phoenix Hall is filled with blood. The Queen Mother collapsed directly. I comforted her, think about it, at least you are still alive. Now she was even more devastated. I think I want to kill her too. Well, I do have that idea too. Avoiding the burial of concubines, the father's Yellow Spring Road is inevitably lonely. But after thinking about it, I still feel that now is not the time. My father's funeral has emptied my treasury, and if my mother dies again at this time, it will be a big deal. 5. Your Majesty, the king is already waiting outside the palace. Hearing the word Yuwang, my mother immediately stood up. Seeing her reaction, I raised my eyebrows. Let him in. The Queen Mother's face changed suddenly, and she yelled at me, don't go too far, what do you ask him to do? I'm really so innocent. Mother, you and the Emperor haven't seen each other for so long, you must miss it, I called him to see you, how can I be too much? Before my mother could say anything, the king was led in. Minister, see the Emperor, the Queen Mother. My uncle is much smarter than my mother, and he gave me a whole set of gifts. Without me, he kept kneeling on the ground. After kneeling for a long time, the Queen Mother couldn't help but speak. Fengyi, let your uncle get up. I hurriedly said, Uncle Emperor, please hurry up, I am not used to it when I first ascended the throne, Uncle Emperor will not blame me. The old thing lifted his eyelids and said respectfully, I don't dare. My mother stared at him with distress in her eyes. I felt that if I wasn't still there, she would have asked Uncle Huang if his legs hurt when he knelt down. Even if I have heard about the old things of the two of them for a long time, it still makes me feel that the word love is really harmful. When my mother was young, she and the royal king were in love. But her father fell in love with her at first sight and forcibly included her in the harem. I thought that the two of them would give up their thoughts in this way, but no one expected that the two of them would give and receive privately in the harem. In order to protect their mother, all the sons and sons of the Chu clan volunteered to guard the frontier and did not return. The general's house ended up not even having the qualifications to return to Beijing. But Chu was not without a plan. My father's heirs were sparse and there were only 2 concubines and me, a princess. If the Queen Mother gives birth to a prince, then according to the concubine system of this dynasty, 80% of them may be named princes. At that time, the Chu family still had a way to return to Beijing and be enfeoffed. All Chu's hopes were placed on the Queen Mother. Her belly was also angry, and it didn't take long for her to become pregnant. At 5 months, the imperial physician diagnosed it as a male fetus. The father was in a good mood and pardoned his mother's family to return to Beijing to visit. Just when everyone was looking forward to the birth of this male fetus, a pair of soup completely disappointed everyone's hopes. On the day she was born, I secretly went to see it. The Phoenix Hall kept crying, and her face was as pale as an evil ghost in hell. But she was laughing. Later I realized what she was laughing at. She is laughing at her love for triumphing over imperial power. Although I can't be with my loved one, at least I cannot give birth to this male fetus. She hated her father and mother. She is resisting in her own way. The emperor was furious and blood flowed like a river. She was fine, Chu suffered on her behalf. My daughter was also completely banished. It is said that protons are not treated as well as dogs. My treatment in the palace is not even as good as that of a proton. My mother hated me, and my father despised me. I was breathless, and I only survived to be 10 years old with the protection of a nurse. Fortunately, the Chu family is really competitive, and they have withered into that, and they can still make meritorious contributions on the frontier. Just when the father was worried about whether to give a reward. My cousin wrote that he did not ask for a gold and silver official position, but only to be able to treat me as a princess well. Only then can I pity and have the power of a princess. 6. Thinking of this, I glanced at my imperial uncle. Before his father's death, he did something else. He picked a mistake and dismissed him from his official position, and now he only holds the title of prince. Although he raised some private soldiers, he was not afraid of it. I frowned and smiled. Since the Queen Mother misses the Emperor so much, then the Emperor will live in the palace. Hearing my words, the Queen's eyes lit up. The King knelt down suddenly. Your Majesty, absolutely not. I quickly helped him up. What is Uncle Emperor doing? I am wholeheartedly for the good of you and the Queen Mother. As I said, I took my mother's hand. After so many years, I finally came to kill my father. Why are you still not happy? Could it be that I dislike my mother's old age and fading? I know the Queen Mother very well. She only had a youthful affection for the royal king in her eyes. But over the years, as I grew older, even if I took care of it, I couldn't compare to those young concubines. What she fears most is that the king thinks she is old and frail. Hearing my words, a hint of panic crossed her face. Listen to the Emperor. The king gritted his teeth, his chest rising and falling with anger. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. He also experienced the feeling of mud not being able to support the wall. The king was left alone in the deep palace, which was no different from imprisonment. The Phoenix Hall is full of my people, and their every move is under my nose. The palace maid just came to report, saying that my imperial uncle had lost his temper. And my mother cried and cried, repeatedly asking if she loved her. My uncle's face turned green. I laughed so hard that I leaned forward and backward. It's hard to imagine how my mother can be so stupid at this age. After the royal king entered the palace, the folding was uninterrupted. I probably took a few looks, and it was nothing more than saying how a foreign man could stay in the Empress Dowager's palace, and what kind of system he had. But no one dared to mention it in the morning of the next day. After all, they have already seen my wrist. If I am unhappy, then no one wants to live. The Feng Zhihui brothers and sisters were calm. His own father was imprisoned and was still sick. But there are those who can't calm down. Cheng Yi, the little marquis of the Lianghou mansion, rushed to the door of the Qingjing Hall menacingly. These days, I have been thinking about solving the smart man, but I have forgotten this stupid man. I entered the royal college when I was 10 years old. Normal princes and princesses began to enlighten at the age of 4 or 5, but I was dragged on until I was 10 years old. At that time, in addition to my 2 imperial brothers, the school also recruited a group of companion readers. Feng Zhihui brothers and sisters, Shen Zhaoheng and Cheng Yi are all companions. I went to the cram school too late to integrate into them at all. The father was so kind to his ministers that he was conniving. So these companions never took me, an unfavored princess, in their eyes. Feng Yayin is both talented and beautiful, and she is not much older than me. They always liked to compare us together. At that time, what Cheng Yi said most often was that Feng Yi had no talent or virtue, and there was no model of a royal princess, so Feng Yayin should be a real princess. 7. Little Marquis, you can't break in. Outside the door, Xiao Dezi's voice was anxious. Xiao Dezi has followed me since he was a child, although he had an inspirational heart to be 9,000 years old when he was a child. But I know he is still kind-hearted. At this moment, he was still willing to stop Cheng Yi. Get away. It's a pity that Cheng Yi doesn't appreciate it. He broke in. The moment he entered, I waved my hand at the secret guard who was about to cut his throat. Feng Yi, what exactly do you want to do? Yayin is angry with you. My hand paused. I regret it a little, Why don't I let the secret guard cut his throat directly? But Liang Ho is not easy to explain, he seems to be this one son. Did you hear me? And Brother Shen's talented person, even Princess Shang is more than enough, you actually let him marry a wet nurse. Listening to Qing Yi's words, my eyes lit up. I almost forgot about it. I ignored Qing Yi and called Xiao Detzi to call my 2 wet nurses. Life in the deep palace was hard, and I couldn't even drink a mouthful of soup at the most painful time. When I was dying, my nurse cut off her hand to bleed to keep me alive. They treat me like their own children. Without their protection, I would never have survived today. After I gained power, the gold and silver mansion rewarded me a lot, but my 2 wet nurses didn't have much hobbies. I have been in the deep palace for many years, and I have never seen any male sex, but now that I am in power, I am more beautiful. Shen Zhaoheng is both talented and beautiful, and should be the first noble son in the capital. Of course, this kind of good thing should be enjoyed by my nanny. As for Qing Yi, although he is a little stupid, he looks good. Presumably, the wet nurse wouldn't care. Waiting for the person to arrive, Qing Yi's mouth was endless. Either let me withdraw the marriage or fight for Feng Yain. Hurry up and send the king back to the house. If the prince hadn't taken Yain to the distant mountains to relax, Yain would still be sad. I lifted my eyelids and glanced at him. This man is so stupid that I suspect he did it on purpose. After a while, Xiao Detzi arrived with 2 grandmothers. Grandma, you have also seen Shen Zhaoheng. This little marquis is also considered top-notch, you 2 choose. Before Qing Yi could react, Mama Sun spoke. I have long heard that the little marquis has a good gun, and is unparalleled, and the slave has long wanted to take a look. I nodded and suddenly thought of something. By the way, he kicked Xiao Detzi just now, don't you mind with a useless leg? Mama Sun shook her head. The secret guard quietly appeared behind Qing Yi with a sword. Ah! Screams resounded through the hall of diligence. In Qing Yi's cry, I wrote down 2 marriage decrees. 8. Although I am a wet nurse, I can't help but be sad. On the day I sent them out of the palace, I waved my hand and gave hundreds of people as dowries. Waitress, housekeeper, secret guard, imperial physician. Before leaving, I took their hands and instructed, remember, you are in charge of the family when you marry, and whoever makes you unhappy is making me unhappy. The 2 grandmothers couldn't see the sadness on their faces, and they got married happily. If you are happy here, the Prime Minister's mansion and the whole mansion will be unhappy. The ministers of the DPRK and China basically went to the wedding banquet. Until this moment, countless people still felt extremely ridiculous. At first, Shen Zhaoheng and Qing Yining refused to obey. But they didn't dare to die. To die is to disobey. I can guess how Shen Xiang and Liang Ho persuaded these 2 sons. It's nothing more than marrying home and offering it. It's good not to see or touch. But their abacus is about to fail, and my 2 wet nurses have the strength and means. As soon as this side was dealt with, the 2 in the Feng Wan Hall began to make trouble again. Feng Yain returned to Beijing alone, and Feng Zhihui stayed in the distant mountains. After getting the news of Qing Yi, my people went to search the distant mountains. There are many cliffs in this location of the distant mountain, so it is easy to hide. They did get some private soldiers, not many but well equipped. After Feng Yain returned to Beijing, he found a way to send a message to the royal king. I looked at the intercepted letterhead and couldn't help but raise my eyebrows. This is to rebel. The letterhead said that Feng Zhihui wanted to raise troops in the distant mountains. It's just that the news came too easily. In order to find out the truth, I summoned Feng Yain into the palace. I haven't seen her for many days, and Feng Yain is still that high-minded. Even though I have ascended to the position of the 9th, she still looks at me with a little disdain in her eyes. Seeing her like this, I didn't say anything. Isn't there a pride bone? Then wait until the pride is worn out. Feng Yain is good at the piano, and I specially prepared a good piano for her. I haven't slept well lately, so my cousin can help me sleep. She gritted her teeth and knelt down in front of the piano as if enduring humiliation. Just as my fingers were about to put on the strings, I heard my teasing voice. "I won't stop if I don't sleep." She glared at me fiercely. "It's time now, and I just left the court. I don't have the habit of taking a nap, and it takes about 5 hours before I fall asleep. Then she will play for 5 hours." Listening to her piano sound, I was in a good mood. Phom, the first talented woman in the capital, is indeed true. The accordion is better than the palace pianists. After listening to 2 songs, I asked the palace maid to watch her continue playing. And I got up and went to the Phoenix Hall. 9. Before I entered the Phom hall, I heard my mother's cry. "What are you in such a hurry to go out for? Do you still remember those little bitches in the house?" The king's voice was cold. "What are you talking about? I want to see Yain." "I don't care, it's hard to be with you, you can't leave." The hysterical cry came to an abrupt end with a sentence from the emperor. I stride into the Phoenix Hall. Rather than the crying queen, I am more curious about the expression of the king. The moment I saw him, I couldn't help but laugh. "Uncle Emperor, why did you end up like this? You didn't rest well." The king is over half 100 years old, although he is well maintained, but after all, he is old. Now I have been tortured by my mother to have dark circles under my eyes and white lips. Hearing my ridicule, his face became more and more ugly. He snorted coldly, "Your Majesty, it's time to let me out of the palace, right?" As soon as the palace was brought out, the Queen Mother was anxious again. "The AI family won't allow you to go." A hint of anger flashed on the king's face. Stupid people are really useful whether they are placed on the enemy side or on the friendly side. "Uncle Emperor, I came today because I was afraid that you would miss your family too much, so I summoned Yain into the palace as well." Hearing that Phom was also there, the old thing clenched his fist hard. "Your Majesty, what do you mean by this?" Xiao answered him for me. "Your Majesty is not sleeping well today, so I asked Phom to play the piano to help me sleep." The king's face was inquiring. I smiled. "Uncle Emperor, you help the Queen Mother sleep, and your daughter helps me sleep. If this goes out, it will be a good story." "You." He was so angry with me that his face turned green. In case this old thing was directly angry with me, I left the Phoenix Hall first. On the way back to the changing hall, I thought about the king's reaction. His attitude couldn't pick anything. But it's too easy. Whether it is a private soldier in the distant mountains or a letterhead of rebellion, it is too easy to obtain. Based on what I know about this old thing, rebellion is not his style. The soldiers he raised did not exceed 10,000 people. Compared with the soldiers and horses in Beijing, it is undoubtedly a mayfly shaking the tree. My mother is stupid, but he is not stupid. There is only one possibility of doing this, and his purpose is not to rebel. I asked Xiao to pass on a secret decree. Now that he has set up the stage, I will also sing with him on stage. When I returned to the palace, it was already dark. Phom fingers were blood red, and her face was pale, but she was still gritting her teeth and insisting on playing the piano. Seeing me come in, she seemed to be competing and pushed harder. Idiot. Even if all 10 fingers are useless, what does it have to do with me? The palace maid opened the letterhead sent in by the 2 grandmothers outside the palace. I glanced at it and waved at Phom. "Cousin, don't play it, it's too ugly, come and help me read the things on the letter." Hearing my words, Phom seemed to have been greatly insulted, and she clenched her lip and walked up to me. The words on the letterhead caught her eye. She stared at the letterhead in disbelief. "Read it." Shen Zhaoheng and Mrs. Shen have. The marriage has been consummated, and after the consummation of the marriage, Shen Zhaoheng stayed overnight every day. Halfway through the reading, tears welled up in her eyes. "Fengi, you are bullying people too much." Snap. Before she finished speaking, I slapped my personal grandmother and slapped her. Phom has been pampered since she was a child, and her body is delicate. A slap slapped her to the ground. I stood up and stepped on her bloody fingers. Ah! A scream came from her mouth. I hooked the corners of my lips. Cousin, is this too much to call bullying? I think it's too much for you to condone those girls from noble families and let me learn to bark and bully people. 10. Feng Yain fainted. I asked someone to wake her up, bandage the wound on her hand, and stared at her to continue playing the piano. I didn't let her stop until I fell asleep. The next morning, the palace door opened, and I asked someone to let her out of the palace. Torturing her is indeed fun, but now is not the time. After being bullied so much, she would definitely go to Shenzhouheng and Qingyi to complain. Feng Zhihui also loves this sister very much. When people are angry, they will inevitably do irrational stupid things. They don't dare to dance in front of me anymore. But this does not prevent them from daring to rebel. For the safety of the two wet nurses, I ordered them to go back to the palace to stay for a while. Similar to what I expected, on the third day after Feng Yain left the palace, the Yuanshan mutiny occurred. This is not at all the same time as what was written on the letterhead I intercepted. Feng Zhihui led private soldiers to take over the county seat overnight and launched a mutiny in the name of the Qing monarch. His momentum is calling on many ministers of the court who believe that women should not ascend the throne. When the early court was in power, the officials in the court were reduced by half, and Shenxiang and Liang Ho also took leave. Those who can come now, except for a few eyeliners left by Feng Zhihui, are all considered to support me. The ministers below quarreled fiercely over who to send to suppress the rebellion. The court lacked the ability to lead the troops. The father valued civil and military affairs for many years, resulting in a serious imbalance in the proportion of civil and military officials. Except for the Chu clan guarding the border, the military generals in Beijing are all fourth-rank minor officials. When it comes to whoever leads the troops to suppress it, they all become shrunken turtles. I lost my temper. Finally, a previously unknown minor official was promoted to the fourth rank and appointed as a general of soldiers and horses. Although those civil officials had opinions, they couldn't say anything at this time. After resolving the general, they argued over the soldiers. There are only so many national troops, the frontier is turbulent, and the border guards account for 300,000 all year round. The rest are distributed everywhere. There were less than 100,000 troops near the capital. This 100,000 is a reassurance for the safety of Beijing. But the distant mountains are not far from the capital, which is most suitable for mobilizing the capital's army. Other nearest ones to the distant mountains also take 5 or 6 days. Those civil servants were divided into two factions, one of which believed that the troopers and horses of the capital should not be mobilized. Another faction believes that the rebels are only 10,000 people, and it doesn't hurt to mobilize troops and horses in the capital. In the end, I decided that He Liancheng would lead an army of 90,000 in Beijing to suppress the rebellion. Only 10,000 people were left in the capital. The army moved slowly and reached the distant mountains in 2 days. He Liancheng sent someone to report that Feng Zhihui closed the city and had no intention of fighting. I passed on a secret decree so that he didn't have to worry. Since Feng Zhihui can't come out, let's surround it. The real battlefield is not in the distant mountains. 11. Recently, there have been many people in Beijing, and even there are new faces in the palace. It's hard for me, the emperor's uncle, to be in the deep palace, but my hands can reach all over the city. It has been raining a lot recently. The black clouds overlapped and pressed down, making it impossible to breathe. I stood in the corridor, looking in the direction of the Phoenix Hall. I still remember when I was young, every time I was bullied, I stood here and looked at the Phoenix Hall. Mama Sun said that no mother would not love her child, and she loved me, but she used the wrong method. I was convinced of her words. There is no mother who does not love her children. But she is not my mother. Little virtue, take my sword. Tonight is destined to be a river of blood. The Jinui surrounded the Phoenix Hall. I carried my sword and walked into the hall step by step. The Empress Dowager sat in the palace, pretending to be calm. Fengyi, what are you going to do? I didn't say anything and waved at the Jinui. They rushed in and pinned the Queen Mother and the king to the ground. The rain outside had already fallen, the wind was howling, and the sound was wailing. The king roared, "Are you going to kill your mother?" Matricide. My biological mother was executed by the Queen Mother and the Imperial King long ago. The Empress Dowager had an affair with the royal king, and gave birth to a daughter, and was sent out of the palace overnight. In case of exposure, she brought a child from her mother's family as her daughter. And I am that child. I crouched down and picked up her chin with my sword. I shouldn't call you the Queen Mother, I should call you Auntie. The Queen Mother's eyes widened. You? How do you know? I smiled and the sword tilted, leaving a red blood mark on her neck. When I was 10 years old, I knew the truth of the matter. Chusher sacrificed too much for her. Official titles and status, children and grandchildren. They were completely disappointed in her. So when I was 10 years old, Chu used the hope of the whole family to bet on my future. Your Majesty, she is your mother, don't listen to the villain's instigation. Seeing that the truth was exposed, the king was still there to resist. I sighed. If he had been quiet and shut up, I could have let him die a little later. There are many talents in the Jinui, and one of them is good at torturing people. Today, I deliberately called him to my side. For the Queen Mother, there is nothing more cruel than watching her beloved suffer. The king's screams and the Queen Mother's cries were mixed. Open your voice in advance for the next big drama. Half an hour later, the guards came to report that a large number of well-equipped troops had appeared in Beijing, and had attacked in the direction of the palace. Immediately afterwards, some palace guards suddenly rebelled, burned and killed everywhere, and opened the palace gates. Shen Zhaoheng and Cheng Yi each led a team of soldiers and entered the palace. A gentleman does not stand under a dangerous bridge. I don't fight a battle without certainty. As soon as the palace gate opened and closed, they never looked back. The palace, which should have been silent, woke up instantly. The female General Chu He, who had been disguised by my side for many days, led tens of thousands of frontier troops who had secretly returned to Beijing long ago to fight with the rebels. The Chu family army buried outside the capital entered Beijing at the same time. 12. I sat at the door of the Fenghuan Hall, as if I could smell the blood in the air. An hour later, the screams in the wind became fainter and weaker. Chu He captured Shen Zhaoheng and Cheng Yi alive and brought them to me. The rain washed the blood on their bodies. In just 1 hour, the Queen Mother went crazy, and the king was not human. Cheng Yi stiffened his neck and shouted angrily, "Fengyi, if you want to kill or chop you, I, Cheng Yi, will never give in." Before he finished speaking, he let out a scream. The other leg was also disabled. The severe pain made him fall to the ground, and there was no sign of the high-spirited little marquis he once had. Shen Zhaoheng lowered his head and said nothing. I squatted down and pulled up his hair to make him look up. "Where is Fengyi?" He pursed his lips tightly, and seemed to have the same idea as Cheng Yi. In that case, I can only be polite. Presumably, it was useless for him to ask for legs. After a while, I asked him again, "Where is Fengyi?" Shen Zhaoheng's voice trembled. "Castle. Songnam Pear Garden." This rain came quickly and stopped quickly. After the rain, the palace returned to its former order. All the palace people were dispatched to clean up the blood and corpses. At 3 o'clock, the guards arrested Fengyi and entered the palace. It was almost dawn, and I was a little tired after tossing all night. So I asked Fengyi to play the piano for me in front of her biological parents to help me sleep. Until the hour of the rabbit, news came from the distant mountains. He Lianqing attacked the distant mountains too, and Feng Zhihui died on the spot with 10,000 arrows piercing his heart. After hearing this, the king vomited out a large mouthful of blood. He was lying on the ground, whining and unable to speak. But I could feel his despair. Just like my despair back then. The Queen Mother had already collapsed, huddled in the corner and kept muttering something. I asked Xiao Detzi to change my dragon robe. It's time to go to the morning court. 13. The sky was bright, and the officials paid their respects. I was closing my eyes on the dragon chair to recuperate. No one below dared to speak. It was almost time for me to slowly open my eyes. I think you all heard last night's movement. I have a list here, and the people on the list are all rebel kings. Xiao Detzi took the list down and read it out. Many of them were ministers who fell to the ground in fright when they heard their names. But there are also 2 on the list that have nothing to do with the royal king's rebellion. It was a well-known corrupt official who took the opportunity to raid their house at this time. Otherwise, who will be responsible for my loss last night? After dealing with these people, the ministers in the court were all soldiers. A slap should give a sweet date. But slap outsiders, sweet dates should be given to one's own family. I sealed more than 10 generals of the Chu clan and pardoned Chu to return to Beijing. I swore when I was 10 years old. The Chu family's road to Beijing must be paved by my Fengyi himself. Now it is also considered a complete merit. If someone leaves, someone should make up for it. Kaienku recruited wise men from all over the world and set up women's scientific examinations and martial arts departments. When I was in power, I would never allow the emphasis on literature over military affairs. 1 emperor and 1 courtier. The imperial court is about to change drastically. The king died before he was beheaded. On the day of his death, the Queen Mother was rarely clear. I saw her for the last time. Ask the Chu family about things that they still can't figure out. Is love really that important? It is so important that it gives up the glory of the family for it, regardless of whether the parents are alive or dead, and implicates countless innocent people. She looked at the sky with tears in her eyes, but her face was full of regrets. If there is no love, then this life will be too difficult. I wiped her neck with a knife. It's not difficult. Pay attention to people's livelihood, control floods, attack territory, and regain lost land. There are things worth doing in my life more than love. The government and the opposition 2-5 have mixed reviews of me. They are afraid of my ruthlessness, and they obey my methods. I don't care what the world thinks. Whose road to becoming emperor is not full of corpses? What I want to do is to be a wise ruler of the ages. It is not a benevolent ruler who is useless except for a good name. End.